we begin with what was already identified as one of the biggest games of the entire season. Ohio State-Penn State, games in Columbus this year. Danny, where do you want to start? Like, what's got your eye looking? Oh, you're going. Danny Cannell will be there giving us coverage on CBS Sports HQ on Friday and Saturday. Come check it out as your extra companion. Yeah, what do you want? Where do you want to start with this game?
So, Penn State's defense, Ohio State's offense. To me, that sort of is the intriguing matchup that'll kind of tell you, how this game is won or lost. Because I do think Penn State's offense, they haven't been very explosive. It's been a source of contention with some of the media. And what's interesting is it's not only through the pass game, it's really through the run game too. Like, they have just been plodding their way down the field, and it's been working. And I think they'll do more of that. I think they're going to, they're sure they would love some explosive plays, but I don't know if that's who they are, and that should be okay. On the other side, I think the surprising thing is that Ohio State's offense has not been as explosive either, and that has been what they've been for the past several years. So can they plod their way down the field against this Penn State defense, which is pretty spectacular? When you look at some of the numbers, I think they're the best defense in the country. They're number one in havoc rate, yards per play, success rate. And now competition has to be considered, but I still think they've got the edge as far as the defense goes. I think they have the edge in the run game. They might have the edge in the offensive line. It feels like if there ever was a time for James Franklin to get over that hump, to get one of these wins on the road versus a top 5 opponent, that this would be the opportunity. But he's doing it with a quarterback who's making his first start in an environment like this.
I have watched every game these two teams have played. Well, I didn't watch much of Penn State against UMass, but other than that, I have watched pretty much every game these two teams have played. We're in the middle of the season. They're both top 10 teams. Now, I really don't know who either one of these teams is yet. Like, I watch them every week and I see them doing what they're doing. And it's just like, okay, like Penn State defensively has been incredible. Like, every single number you look at, they are great. I think nearly half of their plays on defense have resulted in no gain or a loss of yards. That's incredible. It's the top rate in the nation. I think nationally the average is 33%. But what's the best offense they've played? Is it West Virginia or Illinois? They haven't faced anything close to Ohio State. So we're really going to get a glimpse into what this defense truly is on Saturday. But at the same time, how good is this Ohio State offense? Because they can't run the ball. I know they've been banged up at running back, and they might still be banged up this week. But even when they've been healthy, they have really struggled to move the ball on the ground. And they're playing kind of one-armed on offense because it's kind of the passing game or bust. And even the passing game has mostly been Marvin's down there somewhere, and it's just throw it up to Marvin and see what they could do. So if you're finally facing a defense that can maybe, especially, we don't know what Emeka Egbuka's status is for this week. Ryan Day wouldn't say. So he's still questionable. He might play, he might not. But if he doesn't play, I don't know if Penn State's as good as it defensively as its numbers suggest, but I still think it's really good. And they're able to kind of scheme Harrison out of the game in a way nobody else really has been able to this point. Like, Notre Dame did a very good job, but they also had to account for Egbuka. What does Ohio State do? Are they going to be able to move the ball? On the other end, the Penn State offense is even more ineffective than Ohio State's. Like, the numbers they're scoring points, but there is no explosive play on this offense. They rank 116th nationally in explosive play rate. They're at 9.9%. They are a dinking and dunking team who also, like Ohio State, cannot run the ball. Like, we thought this was going to be a strength with them, with their stable of running backs and a good offensive line, but they have mostly been ineffective on the ground. Like, it's a strange position because to this point, Penn State here, I got the numbers right here. The average Penn State drive is 6.61 plays, which is the second most in the nation, which in one hand is good because the offense stays on the field. They don't go 3 and out a lot. It's just their average touchdown drive is 7.91 plays because there's no big plays. The national average is for touchdown drives is 6.84. So they're over more than a play per touchdown drive. Are you going to be able to go 4 or 5 yards at a time against this Ohio State defense? especially with the pass rush that they have and the pressure they could put on you. Like Penn State to this point in the passing attack is very quick to get the ball out. They are not having Drew Aller throw down the field. I wrote about that this week too. Like you look at their offense in the passing game, they are bottom of the Big Ten in air yards per attempt, and they are bottom in the Big Ten in average air yards to the sticks or the first down marker. So their average pass is 2.2 yards behind the first down marker. They're dinking and dunking. They are not throwing down the field. Is that by design because they just want to take care of the football and rely on their defense? Or is it because they don't trust Aller? Or is it just because they haven't had to? Because again, the best offense they faced is either West Virginia or Illinois. Take your pick. So there's a whole lot about both of these teams that I'm going to learn about on Saturday that I haven't really had to learn about until this point. So that's the most interesting thing to me about this one is, or not interesting, but the most exciting thing about this game is I think they're both very good teams. I have no idea how good they are, and I have no idea who's going to win this game.
Jeez, Tom, what do you want? You're making my skin crawl. What do you want? Just chuck it deep every time? We're just talking Japanese out here. I think, no, you know what? When he went off on the reporter, I think it's kind of similar to what Ryan Day did with Lou Holtz. Like Lou Holtz just was the face of a lot of worthy criticism of Ohio State. And I think James Franklin, that was the culmination of a lot of questioning of this offense, which is valid because everything you're saying is true.
I think a lot of the questions that we've had about these teams from the preseason have been answered to the extremes, right? Like for Ohio State, could the defense take another step? I think it has. The defensive line, particularly the interior. I mean, Tyleik Williams is really good and will be a problem for Penn State on Saturday. Hall is a really nice player. We knew the edge guys, Sawyer and JTT are pretty good. What Ohio State's corner answers they got from the portal matter? Yeah, they seem to have. Like safety and linebacker, I guess that's still an open debate. I don't know that they're special there. Penn State, would this defense really be as good as advertised? I think it is. Like they're super athletic. They really have premium pass rushers. They have really good corners. I think they're crazy athletic at linebacker. And, we'll have to see how both offenses handle that. Apologies. Phone's going nuts. Look, I think this game is won with the explosive plays because I don't think either team is going to be able to consistently go on sustained drives. Both these teams are heavy tackle for loss teams. They're heavy pressure teams. They sort of dare you to hit explosive plays if you can. And Chip asked, is the best offense they've faced so far West Virginia? Look, Ohio State is clearly a better offense than the Mountaineers. But I don't think Ohio State's offensive line is better than what West Virginia brought into Happy Valley. So receiver-wise, it's not close. Like nobody on West Virginia would start on Ohio State. But how much, to Tom's point, can the secondary receivers, if Egbuka can't go, how much can they step up? Carnell Tate, 5-star freshman. Brandon Ennis, 5-star freshman. They both got some run in that game at Purdue. Cade Stover, the tight end, could be big. I just think it's decided on the explosive plays. The total has been bet down this morning to 45. Like the implied here is 24-21-ish to 24-20 type thing. Like I think that that total is telling you how the game will play out. A lot of offensive lines losing. We knew this time last year, Ohio State, the way they felt about their backup tackles that were on the team, they knew they would have to go to the transfer portal to get 2 tackles. Good luck with that. We saw where the best one went. Probably Oregon with a Johnny Cornelius. Michigan got 1. Oklahoma got 1. Needing 2 is potentially a fatal flaw for this Buckeyes team. And I think Penn State has a massive advantage there with their edge rushers over these tackles for the Buckeyes. But Penn State's offensive line is also not taking a step forward. Like that, we sort of needed them to. And we had major questions about Penn State's receivers. That's the other one that's been answered in the extreme. Like Cephas has not been the answer. They just don't have major difference makers there. But I think you're going to get a boatload of one-on-ones, man. And whoever wins the one-on-ones, it's kind of NBA style. A lot of ISO ball here, or whoever blows coverages. And so far this year, these teams have not blown a lot of coverages. So explosive plays should carry the day.
I was dialed into that Purdue game because I was really looking forward to Ryan Day telling me how wrong I was, before promoting the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air spinoff. But I had 3 names coming out of that. Bud, you just mentioned 2 of them. Number 1, Carnell Tate, just another oh, duh. there's another player that we talked about on the Cover 3 podcast. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll see him in 2 years. No, you'll see him now. Like he was right there, ready to answer the call. As soon as he was out there, he was a difference maker. Number 2, Cade Stover. Like, that's a player who, if you want to try to find someone who could be very problematic, Penn State dials up a pass rush. All of a sudden, you've got a matchup advantage with a basketball player, power forward, and he's going to be able to go and make that catch for you to extend a drive to get a first down. And then the third one, after the talk was that they might even try to redshirt him, Dallin Hayden goes for 76 and a touchdown on just 11 touches. Now, he's not the answer to why Ohio State can't run the ball, but he is certainly another potential explosive addition. He is somebody else that can be able to be a spark. And so if Penn State's going to do everything it can to neutralize all these things that Ohio State's offense does, I think that last week we have started to see like what the counterpunch, what the third, fourth pitch is that they're up there. And I think that that's a reason not to be totally dismal about Ohio State's offensive ability against this. Like you mentioned, Danny, one of the best defenses in the entire country. Even if you put an opponent adjustment in, Penn State's excellence has been really, really impressive so far this year.
Manny Diaz is really good. Like, he's done a great job at confusing quarterbacks, at bringing pressures that catch you a little bit by surprise. When I watch Kyle McCord, he's definitely coming along, but he's still a little bit slow to see. And some of the big plays I'm trying to see, because it was the Maryland game I was watching, and I was in studio and then went back and watched it. There were a couple touchdowns he left on the table. And like, this is the type of game when you get those man-to-mans, if you underthrow them, or if you're a split second late recognizing, it just could be the difference in the game. Like, you know, a 30-yard completion is good, but a 60-yard touchdown pass is what wins you the game. So it's just something I noticed. And from Drew Aller, we haven't even seen him get those type of plays, like those type of opportunities, and he's going to get them. So at least you've seen those plays from Kyle McCord. So
that's the leap we saw Daniels at LSU make this year. He used to be a guy who turned touchdowns into first downs, right? Like, if you got the touchdowns, you have to throw them and you have to hit them. The other point on this, even like the best explosive passing game against a team with a pulse that Penn State has been that West Virginia game. And even if you go back and look at how the explosive passes were created, it was a lot of like Drew Aller scramble drill, right? Can Ohio State get him on the ground? He's a pretty big guy. He's pretty athletic, and he's got a cannon. So how good is Penn State in scramble drill is probably going to play into this game quite a bit, because they don't really have a great like drop back. Your back foot hits that third step, that fifth step, and the ball's out. It's a lot of sort of, just kind of run around type stuff right now. So we'll see how well he can do that.
You know, if your point about the explosive plays, both Bud and Danny, is going to be the difference in this one, like the 60-yard pass, then I think you have to lean Ohio State's direction, because they have shown the ability to do it, whereas Penn State hasn't. And also, like, the one thing Ohio State's offense does really well, it does it a lot, but it doesn't do it like to a ridiculous amount. Like pre-snap motion, they have been very effective. When you see an Ohio State receiver going in motion, there's usually a big passing play coming, because their explosive pass rate when guys are in motion is 24.3%. That is top in the nation. They use it really well to see like McCord, because like you mentioned, Danny, he's sometimes really slow to see what's developing. But when they put him in motion, I think he gets a much better idea of what the defense is doing before the snap. So that way, that first read, he knows really quickly what's going to be there and what isn't. And when that happens, they are very effective throwing down the field.
Do y'all think it's going to be as low scoring as the total suggests?
I don't know. I think there could be, if it's explosive plays like Bud's talking about, I also think there might be a pick six and a scoop and score in there like that. I think that's a concern.
Last season's game was bananas. It's like three games in one. Like, these games end up like it might be slow for a little bit, but when these games take off, it tends to get a little bit loose.
You know, these two tend to play kind of back and forth affairs. So we'll see.
I'm excited about it. Danny Cannell again will be. Have you been to Columbus?
I called a couple games there, but not of this magnitude. You know, I think it was like the noon ESPN2 Ohio State versus
Northwestern.
Yeah, exactly. A non-con.
So if you're in Columbus, I know that Big Nut's a listener, so go look out for Danny and show him a good time around town.